Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk. I am your host, Asia the Bird. I have a very special guest with me today. She's a nail artist. Please welcome Mutsa. Hello, Mutsa. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. So I want to go ahead and kick off this interview by asking where you're originally from and how you got started in the nail industry.
Okay. So I was born in Zimbabwe, but I've been brought up in the UK, pretty much all over. So I'm not from anywhere in specific. And how I got into nail art, so I've been taking very good care of my nails since I was quite young. I have anxiety, so I was never really keen on going to like nail shops. So I would always sort of
Mhm.
learn to do my own thing to look after myself. And then I started doing my mum and my sisters or like friends' nails probably when I was about 18, 19,
Mhm.
but never really forayed into nail art. It was mostly just on the nail care side up until I think March or April of 2020. So during the first lockdown is when I really decided to sort of start playing around with nail art.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, nail art is a wonderful thing because you can do anything with it. It's pretty cool. Now, I wanted to really go ahead and ask, who are like your favorite nail artists?
Ooh, that's a good one. Uh, I think thinking of who inspired me really to like try and sort of develop my own style, which is obviously something that's very much still in progress. But the people who inspire me the most are probably Imani Nails, Bambi Nails, Asa Brie, Nails by Gracie J, Editorial Nail, Beauty by J, Elvira Safina. I think a lot of my early influences come a lot from Russian manicurists and Russian nail artists. I really
Mhm.
love their sort of like sleek, abstract style. But I really love a lot of what British and American nail artists have to offer. I think Instagram definitely opened my eyes to, what's possible, and the endless possibilities as well. So yeah, those are probably my favorites, I'd say. Oh, and is it Gaudi Octopus? Gaudi Octopus? I don't know how to pronounce it.
I'm not sure with that one.
I think she's based in the States and she does really beautifully ornate nail art, like really detailed. Yeah, she's incredible.
Mm. Yeah, I get inspired by the editorial nail Kanichie. I just interviewed her and her work is
I
wonderful.
saw, I saw.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of cool nail artists. Also I've interviewed Chantel Vermont from Clawgas and her stuff is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she's great. She's really, really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and also I got exposed to like Russian nail artists, European nail artists, and what they do. Their work is amazing. Like the extreme long nails, the artistry, the cartoon characters they can do. Like the realism is
Yes.
it's absolutely incredible.
For sure, for sure. No, it's really cool. Just like how varied I think the nail art styles are there, because I think the main focus is obviously just like how well done their manicures are, and you can see that, and then how then the nail art develops because that sort of base is done so neatly. The nail art
Mhm.
that then comes after that is remarkable. It's really, really nice.
Oh, that's really, really cool. Now, what has been your experience owning your own nail salon or nail studio?
Sorry.
What has been your experience owning your own nail salon or nail studio, possibly?
So I have a nail studio. And it's a bit of a weird one. So I only qualified like May of last year. So I was just working on myself. And I guess I would position myself as a nail art creator before a nail technician. Because I was just kind of seeing whether I would enjoy working on people. But I was recently in Johannesburg for about 4 months. And that's when I saw most of my clients. Because when I'm based in the UK, which I currently am at the moment, I'm in a little town called Chesterfield, and it's the
Mhm.
kind of town where the girlies are only really going to want to get like single color like manicures, which is
Mhm.
not really what I want to do because I really want to focus on the nail art side of things.
Mhm.
So it depends. Like sometimes I'll go to London, and if I do, then I'm mobile. I'm a mobile nail artist. But as far as my studio is concerned, it's primarily focused on creating content and working on myself.
Oh, cool, cool. But I definitely want to get into like the mobile side of things. So what has been your experience like doing like the mobile nail business?
I mean, it's been pretty good. I like meeting new people, and I think being mobile sort of allows me to have agency over what kind of clients I'm going to see, what kind of nail art I'm going to create. I think when you work from what I've gathered anyway, if I was working in a salon, if I was in a home studio, I definitely have to be a bit more flexible in the fact that I'm probably going to not be doing as much of the stuff that I want to be doing nail art wise. But more often than not, if somebody contacts me and they want to book in with me, I know off the bat what their vibe is and also what kind of service they're going to want. More often than not, it is nail art, and they are more than happy for me to have complete agency over what I create, which has been really great. So I think from that perspective, I think until I sort of make a name for myself, being mobile has been a really great way to sort of grow and learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that with like mobile, because like how you said, you have way more freedom to travel and go to people who want your work instead of being in one place. So
Yes, exactly.
I think that's really the cool thing with that. Now I want to get into the nail education system. So what is your whole take in terms of the nail education system in the UK?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. I wonder if it's similar to how things are there, in that there are beauty schools where obviously you can go and do a range of, or you can go and learn to sort of be like a full service beautician. And then there are the, dedicated nail schools. In the UK, to my knowledge, they're mostly owned by nail brands. So we've got brands like Magpie, the Gel Bottle, Biosculpture. To my knowledge, most of the nail schools are owned by the brands. There are some smaller ones. I think a lot of people learn online now as well. I trained with Biosculpture, and it was an interesting one because I expected it to be really detailed, and I expected it to span over a huge amount of time, because I went to vocational college when I finished secondary school or high school. And so I used to be friends with beauticians, and obviously you train for years in some cases, right? So I thought that was going to be the same experience. I thought, oh, maybe I'll be training for months, etc. But it was really, how do I put this? It was very compressed. Like, it was over the span of 4 days. And then I just did my assessment and it was done. And I was quite taken aback by that, but it was a really good experience. I mean, the woman that I trained with is very, very knowledgeable, very, very talented. And Biosculpture is obviously a very well-trusted brand. I think for what they do for the short amount of time that you do train, it's great. And I think luckily, because I'd already been experimenting by myself and learning online and all of those things, I think that definitely made it a bit easier. But I think if I'd gone into it completely fresh, it certainly wouldn't have been enough time for me. But I think it ranges. I think some places will give really detailed training and some places will do the compressed training. I think it's just a wide range from what I've seen.
Yeah, like with the US, like, because I did like cosmetology courses in high school. And before I went to college, before I went to art school, I got my cosmetology license. So it's different here in the States. So with cosmetology, you have to have like 1,500 hours. And with being like a nail tech, it's like 250, I think. I may be wrong on that. But yeah, it's totally different here. So you have to acquire hours before you get licensed. And the thing is, with the nail education system, I think like even with those hours that you have, I think they could expand more on the knowledge of nails.
For sure.
Terms of like nail shapes, different types of manicures, the nail art, in terms of the business end of it, how to take care of different clients. I think that's something that could be better within the beauty education system.
No, I completely agree. I think one thing that I certainly noticed is exactly what you were saying. Like, the training that I did, in comparison to the training I've heard of from other brands in this country, really covered the nail health side of things in more detail than I've had other brands do and other schools do, which I thought was really beneficial, because I feel like that should absolutely be the basis of what you're learning, right? Not just the problem solving, but also taking good care of somebody's nails, understanding the differences in different people's nails and hands, and different diseases and things like that, and things that could go wrong. But in regards to looking at the bigger picture, it does kind of feel like it's more business focused, and that everything's broken up. So for example, my course covered off manicure and then gel manicure, and like the science side of things, the technical side of things. Didn't do any kind of like nail design, which I do think is important, but it was, I think besides a French manicure, there wasn't really anything else included. But I think also the business side of things is then like an add-on, and you have to pay extra for that. Or if you want to use, you know, like a pot and brush versus a bottle and brush, it's an extra payment for that. And so I think that would likely deter people from getting as much training as they possibly can. Whereas from what you're saying, how the training is more consolidated over there is definitely more beneficial for somebody learning. But I mean, as you're also saying, there are things missing, like understanding the business side of things, because that's definitely the case here. I actually see more nail technicians sharing information with their followers or with fellow nail technicians than I see the actual beauty or nail schools doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how could you describe your nail art style?
I actually don't know. I feel like the last time I spoke to somebody, they said it was a bit like, if you remember the days of the when people used to listen to music on iPods, and there'd always be that one person that had an iPod that would have something for everybody. They kind of describe my nail art style like that, and I feel like that's probably the closest I can get to. I mean, I don't do like character art and things like that. There are definitely things I don't do, but I don't know. I feel like I can't define it. I think I would define it as trying. I try everything. Like I'm always open to trying everything. I'm very open. I think if I had to nail down one specific style that is probably quite consistent, it's probably abstract. I'd say it's quite an abstract style. I'm very heavily influenced by abstract art, abstract music as well, and sculpting and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like with mine too. I like being abstract and, you know, using lines, and, you know, I do also my own characters as well.
I
Because I'm
see
also
your work is great. Your work
thank
is
you.
really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm also an illustrator. So, but yeah, like that's what I like to do as well, like being abstract and just letting things go. Like, cause you know, certain nail artists like Spiffster, and I just love how they do like, you know, that abstractness. Same thing with like how, you know, we said Kaniche, you know,
Yeah.
this is very abstract. And the thing that I like about Kaniche's is that it's colorful, but some of her stuff has like an earthy vibe to it. And that's what I like about
For
her stuff.
sure. For sure. For sure. You can tell that her art style is influenced by like nature. You can definitely see that in what she does. But then equally, she does some stuff. I mean, I love the way that she works with color. I don't think there's anyone that I've come across, even in some of my favorites, that work with color the way that she does. It's just amazing to see, because you know one of her sets when you see them instantly. And yet her work can be very varied. Like even the way she does a tortoiseshell now is very different to how everyone else is doing it. Her style is amazing. I really love her work.
Yeah, and like with Spiffsters, like that more of that graffiti, you know, abstract style, which I like about hers. And I also like how, you know, we said Gracie J, like Gracie J has that minimalist style. And I love how she's like changing the game with, you know, not only with nail art, but also with understanding the marketing side and being a content creator in terms of understanding the business, because that's something that's very important for us as nail artists.
100%, 100%. It's so cool to see people being able to lend different things to the community and to the industry. And I think especially within within our community, especially as Black and brown creators, or creators from backgrounds where we won't be accommodated as much, like to have, you know, people who've been in the game for longer, who understand how certain things work, who are learning themselves and are willing to share and be vulnerable from a business perspective is just, it's so invaluable. Yeah, she's, you know, in addition to sharing her incredible art, for her to be sharing all of this really important information is, yeah, it's really, really cool that she does all that.
Yeah. And just looking at everybody's styles is absolutely incredible. And it's going to show there's enough for everybody. There's room for everybody.
Sure. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in terms of the nail scene in the UK, like, how could you describe like the nail scene in the UK? Is it big down there?
Yes. Yeah, in short, it's massive. Like I think I was kind of aware, like my background is in fashion and the creative industry. So I'm a marketer by, I guess, profession, besides obviously now being a qualified nail technician. But I worked in the fashion industry for a while, and I think it's always been something that's very much been at the core of the culture here. When you're thinking about creativity or fashion or style, you name it, nail art has always sort of intersected. You know, if I was going to like GQ events or like Nike events, there'd always be a nail artist there, you know, as an activity that would be available at that event. When you look at like editorial, when you look at, like, I work for a printing company. They're like a well-known printing company, but they're more focused on the creative side of things. So they cater to, you know, illustrators and videographers, etc. Even just like the photo shoots that I would sometimes assist on for those products, the nails are very important, how the hands looked, those kinds of things. So I think it's very much always been at the core of pretty much everything that happens, but more so now, like I mean, all over the world, right? Like nails are very important. Nail art is becoming a huge thing. So yeah, I'd absolutely say that the scene is pretty massive here.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I've never been to the UK, but that's somewhere I would love to go down the line, the UK, especially in London. And, you know, the thing is with fashion and nails, it's just so crazy, like how you said, like, it's just as much as of a statement piece as the garment. So when you add nails to it, it adds that flair to it. And so
For sure.
that's the beautiful thing about that.
For sure, for sure. It's very important. I think even when I worked on like menswear shoots as well, like making sure that the nails look neat or making sure there's a specific color on the nails, like it's so important. It's very much it brings the whole thing together, right? So it is super important.
Oh, that's really, really cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, in terms of like the nail studio, it's called I'm Pressed.
Mhm.
I like the name because I find it very
Thank you.
interesting. So how'd you come up with the name?
And you are maybe the only person that's actually said it the way that it's supposed to be said. People think it's impressed, but it is I'm pressed. I get it all the time, and they're like, "Oh, it's I'm pressed." I'm like, "Yes, it's I'm pressed." So the way I came up with it is I started off making press-ons. That's kind of how my Instagram account was born, and it wasn't really something that was supposed to happen. I guess from like a commercial perspective, I'd never really had the intention of selling them. I just wanted to show the designs that I was learning to create and sort of, you know, showing the progress of me developing my style. And then of course, because it was during lockdown, lots of people were buying press-ons. And I remember I was trying to think of what I should call myself. And at the time, people just, I mean, the way my friends would describe me is that I'm the cynical one and I'm perpetually pressed. So that's kind of how it came to be. So yeah, that's literally it. I was like, of course, I'm pressed. Press-ons makes sense.
Yeah. It is that correlation.
Mhm.
That's really, really cool. Now, in terms of pricing and in terms of like marketing, what are some tips you can give in terms of someone who wants to sell their nail services and also how to go about pricing?
That one's a tricky one because so like something that I've learned is that it depends on where you are and who you're talking to, right? So
Mhm.
for example, like one of the main reasons why I wouldn't trade out of the town that I'm currently living in is that I could never charge what I deserve to charge for my art, my craft. So for example, in London, I can charge a certain amount, one, because obviously cost of living and how much people are earning makes perfect sense, but also in line with what I want to charge for my art also
Mhm.
makes sense. But if I was to try and charge those prices here, it wouldn't make sense because people don't spend money here the way that they do down south, you know, and that will
Right.
change depending on where you are. I think also just looking around, you know, like a lot of nail technicians do share what they're charging. And of course, you can just go on booking sites and see, like we've got, I'm trying to think of what the American version is, but we have like an aggregated booking platform here. So I think there's a few, but one of the most well-known ones is called Treatwell. So you can book like, you know, to go get your hair done or your nails done. Like you can go on there as well and have a look in your area, what the kind
Mhm.
of standard is. But then also, I guess, looking at what you're spending and not necessarily just on your products. Because I think that was a huge eye opener for me. Beyond what you're spending on your products, you know, how much is the tech costing? You're training yourself, you know, you're expanding your skills, the quality of the products that you're using, factoring all of that stuff in, as well as doing some sort of, I guess, market research, you'd call it. And also, I guess, some localized research, looking at where you are, how those prices are going to make sense. I think that's the best advice that I can give, because even when I was doing my press-ons, when I would speak to American customers, for example, sometimes they would be like, oh, so I guess this is how much this is going to cost. And so, for example, for like a plain color set, they'd be like, oh, so this is going to be about $40. And I'd be like, I mean, sure, if you want to pay that. But like here, nobody would be willing to pay more than £15, which I think translates to about like $24 for a set of 20 nails in one color. So that's a huge change, even when you look at it from that perspective, right? So yeah, I think that's the best advice that I can give. I think look at what you're doing, how you're investing in your trade, and then also have a look at what other people are doing and kind of find a middle ground that you're happy with between those two.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I like how you said, understand what you're investing, because I think that's something that we have to take into consideration. And plus, with the nail services or the press-on nails that you do, it has to be with the time, the materials, and you got to consider
absolutely
all that factors in the price and the way that it's charged.
Absolutely, for sure.
And it's going to be certain things going to be priced high. If somebody charged like a set of presses for like $120, it's because they're understanding like the time, the materials that they're using, and plus the quality of the products. Because if you buy, like, say, for instance, the gel bottle or Magpie, it may cost like $15 or $20 for a polish. So
exactly.
The stuff ain't cheap.
It's not. You're completely right. And especially when you start getting into things like, designs that require like a builder gel on top to even out the design, how long that's taking, how much of that you're using. If you're using chromes and pigments, like that's extra time and extra care, as well as extra cleanup. Like it's effort and money and time and service. It's considering all of those things for sure. Completely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's your take in terms of salon ownership? How important is documentation and insurance?
Incredibly important. For sure. Like you absolutely, I think beyond, the typical understanding of, insuring yourself to protect yourself, I think it's also just understanding, like what could go wrong. It's understanding what could go wrong, not just for you, but for your client. It's understanding the products that you're using, because of course, within insurance, you're considering, the ingredients, like reactions that could happen, all of that stuff. It's just the same as like, the possessions that you have and what you consider when you buy a nice car. It's the same thing, right? So I think, yeah, it's incredibly important. I think everybody should be properly licensed and properly insured, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. Now, in terms of the nail industry, what is your whole thoughts on the whole progression of the nail industry?
I don't have the best thoughts on it, and I want to articulate myself as best as possible. So I think when I initially forayed into the nail industry, I was very starry-eyed, and I think if anything, I was just so taken aback by how much, to an extent, had been hidden from me. Like there were so many incredible creators and nail artists and nail technicians that I just was not exposed to at all, because I've been following nail artists for a long time. Like I mentioned, I was always into Russian nail art, and I would just by chance come across the odd American nail artist. But to think you have people like Theatre Tutorial Nail, like Gracie J, who has been in the game for a very long time and has been doing noteworthy work on and offline. Charmed by Sarah is another one I forgot to mention. Like she also does incredible work, but I didn't even know these people existed until a year ago. And I think when you look at the nail industry from an offline perspective, so how people are operating in salons, and then when you look at how it's operating online and obviously adjusting and adapting to becoming more digital, I just feel like there's a lot of work to be done for it to be a bit more inclusive. I think there's a lot more work to be done in regards to the industry. And I think brands, as well as, people in the position of providing insurance and things like that, understanding the changes in this country specifically. I know it happens in the States as well, nail technicians and beauticians in general talking about changes in pricing, how people have been paying the same price for X amount of time, or how people are more willing to pay for lashes and not for nail art, and understanding that, providing this service is just as important and just as valuable, and a lot is invested into that. I think there are some corners of the industry that are definitely trying to champion that and talk about it more, so talking from a media perspective, so magazines, etc. But I still don't think there's enough being done really to celebrate everyone, number one. And number two, there's not enough being done to say, like, we deserve more, like the nail technicians deserve more. And just as, it's become a norm for people to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a good wig or for some lashes or for microblading, please understand that nail technicians invest a lot of time and a lot of money in providing the best service and providing a good environment for you to come into and to really experience that self-care that you're, treating yourself to. Just having like a mutual understanding and mutual respect of that between technicians and clients. I think it's not fair that a lot of technicians have to fight for that themselves, and actually that there are, how higher powers that be in the industry that could absolutely help champion that a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very well said, because like, I just interviewed Charmed by Sarah and we talked about the progression of the nail industry. And the thing is, like, people still look at nails as like the bottom, and the whole thing is that nails is just as much of an art and just as much of a fashion statement as anything else, like how we said earlier. And we're spending a lot of time and materials and these high-end products to create a body of work on nails. And nails is a canvas just like anything else. And so if you're willing to pay $400 for a wig or, buy you a Louis Vuitton purse, then why can't you spend $100+ on a set of press-ons or on a nail service?
For sure.
So
completely agree. Especially when you look at the work that she creates. Like, she literally creates sculptures, like jewel sculptures, like literal pieces of jewelry. And in the cases of press-ons, like, you can reuse these things. I get that, with some people, they simplify it from the perspective of, oh, I'm going to go in and get my nails done, and then I have to have them removed. And it's like, sure, but I feel like a lot of nail technicians and nail artists are making it so that people can, hold on to these things, reuse them, and to be able to, have them as accessories almost, right? That's what press-ons are more or less becoming. And when you look at work created by people like Charmed by Sarah, I just don't know how you couldn't see the value in whatever she's charging, because she knows how much she's investing, and look at what she's creating, So it is, it's mad that it's still considered to be almost like a trivial service, even though there's just as much, if not more, that's being invested into, because it's not just the manicure and the prep. There's I mean, I don't have to tell you, there's so much. There's so much that goes into providing that service. It's insane that it's just looked at this kind of like, like menial service, if anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. And also too, I think more Black nail techs and nail artists, I think, deserve more credit, especially within the nail industry, considering like over the years of the nail trends that we've started, like, the long nails with the bling and stuff, that was considered ghetto. And now everybody is into having the jewels and the art, the strokes on the nails. And that's the thing. So I think that's another thing too. I think Black nail artists and nail techs should get the credit for, being the trendsetters of the nail industry.
100%. And you're totally right. Like, whether it's the resurgence of like classic 90s styles that absolutely derived from, certain neighborhoods in the States and were true to Black communities specifically, and were looked down upon and were judged, and are now becoming people are considering them to be trends that are restarted by people who aren't from those communities. I think people steal from us a lot, and it's very frustrating. And it's gone from being, I think, in the last couple of years, not having as much agency over creating those pieces of arts that are being, like recreated or inspired by. It's now brands are also now capitalizing off of this. I mean, they've done it before. It happens in music, it happens in art often, but I think it's extremely frustrating to have these layers of like obstacles. I think as nail artists from marginalized backgrounds, we don't get as much exposure. We're trying to thrive and grow on platforms that have algorithms that are biased. Like, we're not going to get the same treatments as our as our counterparts, our white counterparts, or lighter counterparts, right? Because it's also considering that. So it's
Right.
frustrating that we have all of these things to consider. And now on top of that, not only are our pieces of art or our styles or techniques that we develop being stolen by creators, brands are doing it too.
Right.
So even from that perspective, and if they're not stealing from us, they're trying not to pay us enough for our work. They're trying not to compensate us for using our likeness. It's just things that we know that our counterparts aren't having to deal with on the same level. Definitely from that perspective, I spoke on that very recently because I've had some very challenging conversations with brands just this year alone. And it's mad, right? Because from all of these levels, the industry is constantly talking about how it's evolving and how, it's adapting. But we know, as people who are experiencing it firsthand, that it just isn't, I can't see any real change, and that's somebody who's only been in the industry for 2 years. So I can only imagine with you guys, having been around for a lot longer, you can truly see that when some of these brands and some of these magazines are talking about, we're moving in the right direction, and we're all sat here like, not really, but okay, sure.
Yeah, and I could definitely agree with that. It's the thing that we're still fighting for this recognition and our impact within this industry in itself.
For sure.
And the thing is, especially with, how you said with art in general, I see people are illustrators or painters and they get their designs and artwork stolen and they be put on a t-shirt, it be maybe put on a coat or like a scarf or whatever, and the thing is, I think we have to get into the phase of trademarking our work, because I think that helps us protect, and I'm looking into trademarking now, and
That's
that
cool.
helps us protect our work and what we do. And especially if you look at TikTok, there's Black people that do these TikTok dances, and then somebody white can come in and just profit off of it.
For sure. Yeah.
And it just, it happens not just with nails, but in different aspects of art.
Yeah, no, all the time. And it's been happening for so long. And it's such a shame, because I think as a community, not just speaking for Black people, I think even if you look at South Asian communities, East Asian communities, and and what they share in their art and their culture, just the same way that we do as Black people, we want to share, we want to be open. And I think we are very open and giving and generous people in general. But what sucks is that we are kind of getting to a place now where we are going to have to start considering gatekeeping certain things because people don't respect our art form. And I think even just when you look at it from a systematic perspective, where people almost know that no one's going to care that we're being stolen from. And so that's why it's becoming, I think, even more prevalent, because, well, people know that they can do this, or brands know that they can do this, because who's going to care? Unless it's happening to somebody that people deem worthy of, compensation or respect. Ultimately, we kind of have to find ways to protect ourselves, because unfortunately the industry isn't doing enough, like you said, to one, recognize us, and to give, Black creators and Black artists recognition, but also to protect us in the way that they are some of our counterparts.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, the whole thing that with us as Black nail artists and nail techs in particular is that we have to work a lot harder than everybody else, and a lot hard to get the recognition. Yeah. And that's the entire thing with that. Like with Angelina Talley, like this is a person that was high in the position of Vogue, and he had to work a lot hard to get to where he was at to be better at larger Vogue. So that's the reality for us as Black artists. We have to work a lot harder. We can't be neck and neck.
No, we can't, unfortunately. No.
So that's just the reality that we face every single day. Now, I want to go ahead and switch gears and talk about some nail mediums and favorite nail techniques. So what has been like your favorite nail mediums to use when creating nail art or doing like a nail service?
I think more recently, I'm going to say like ombre or gradient designs. I sucked so badly at them like this time last year. And if anybody had been following me long enough on Instagram, it was just something I was like, I will get this. I have to get this. Like I tried everything I could. I tried working with pigments. I bought every single ombre brush you could sell me. Like I tried everything. And then I actually found these two brushes on, I think it was AliExpress. And it was one of those things where I just kind of bought them flippantly because I was like, I mean, I've tried everything and it's just not happening. I've kind of made some headway with pigments, and I really love working with pigments. But it was also really hard to find good quality pigments. But luckily I eventually did find somewhere that sold some good pigments. But I was like, I don't really love working with powders. So like chromes and stuff, now that they're being provided in like pressed palettes and things, so handy because I don't like mess, which doesn't make sense as a nail artist because there's a lot of mess involved. But yeah, I bought these brushes and it's like everything changed. It literally, now I just will, there's going to be ombre over everything for the rest of this year. I've already, you know, warned my followers, you're gonna see so much of it because now that I finally nailed it, there's just so many different ways that you can incorporate it into designs. And like, no, I haven't met anyone who doesn't like an ombre design yet. So there is that. I'm trying to think of what else. Sugaring is also some, I don't actually know what it's called. Some people have referred to it as sugaring or acrylic pour, but just the act of like using gel, not curing it, and then pouring acrylic over it and then curing it. I think it originated in that like sweater design. I don't know who actually came up with that technique, but I think that's probably another technique that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the sweater technique is pretty cool. Also, too, I got into like the water marbling, where you do like gel and then you do like the clear gel and you add like the colors, and it's pretty cool. Because I took a nail course with Vanity Projects where I was taught how to do like another way to do water marbling. So I thought that was a really fun thing. I'm a gel and acrylic paint person. I like to paint with acrylic paint.
I saw, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and also too, like I love 3D gel. 3D plasticine gel is everything to me. I love sculpt because it makes it so much easier than acrylic. Because acrylic, you don't have a lot of time to really just sculpt anything. That's just for me.
I've heard, I feel like that's the general consensus. People always say you have to move very quickly with acrylic, right?
Yeah, and it's gonna dry eventually. Like gel, you have nothing to worry about because you can play with it, you know, and it'll still be like the same consistency.
No, for sure. I think those are probably two that are next on my list. I've just bought some, you know, like the metallic watercolors that are like very popular at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
So I've just bought some of those, and I've just bought some 3D gel as well, because I feel like I'm like gradually working my way through, because the thing that I would have normally done would have just been to try and do everything at once. But one of my resolutions for 2022 is to just sort of one step at a time. But that's so interesting that that's something that you're enjoying, because that's something I'm really keen to learn.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like I've loved 3D gel so much. And plus, like for me, like it's easy to work with. You know, you can pat it down, you can lift it up and make any shape you want. So I think that's really, really cool. Now, in terms of mental health, how important is talking about mental health within the community?
Very, very. I think one of the reasons I actually got into nail art is because I've never had a good experience at a nail shop, like in my life. And not just from so I mentioned earlier that I suffer from anxiety, and it's one of those things where I know that there will be experiences that I have where it's, you know, a culmination of me being anxious as well as what's happening. I know that there are things that are obviously like fact, and then are things that are a result of me maybe overthinking or being worried about something. But generally speaking, like whether it's, you know, the quality of the service or the quality of the actual manicure, or just how I was treated by the nail technician, never once in my life had a good nail appointment. And that's kind of why I decided to take things into my own hands. So when I actually went to Johannesburg, I think it was November 2019, and then I basically came back so that my mum wouldn't be alone during lockdown. But like nail salon culture there is huge. Like people go and get their nails done like every 2 weeks, like as a minimum. So I was like, you know, I'm going to do this because the girls love doing it. They say that it really makes them feel nice. It's like a nice treat for them. I think I went 2 or 3 times, and every single time, like somebody either cut my cuticle or, you know, there was always something that didn't go well. And when I would try and find, and it's really hard for me to like speak up as well because of my anxiety, which I know doesn't make sense probably given my personality, but I just don't really do confrontation well. But anytime I would be like, hi, like, sorry, you've cut me, or this is not very nice, I would be met with defensiveness. And I think the conversations that are being had now about, the mutual respect between a nail technician and their client, making sure that you're providing a good environment for your client, as well as clients understanding that, you might come and see a nail technician and they're not having the best of days, or, the quiet appointment is something that's like trending at the moment, right? How that can benefit both the client and the nail technician. When you're talking about being overworked and things like that, I think it's really important now that it's becoming less of a transactional thing, and there being an understanding of the fact that this service or this appointment is a nice thing for the client, but it's also important to respect the person providing the service. So I think it's really, really important to discuss the various aspects of mental health. And I think especially when you now consider Instagram and TikTok and social media, and those things being such a huge part of how, beauty businesses are running. So mental health is very much at the core of that, because we know what kind of impact social media and digital content can have on mental health. So I think it's really important that people are talking about, not overworking yourself, not spreading yourself too thin, making sure that there's an understanding of people's policies and respecting people's boundaries, being careful what kind of information you share with somebody. I know another thing people were talking about were, this sort of myth that nail technicians should be therapists, and nail technicians saying, it's not fair for you guys to come in and bring some of your stuff, or like to dump some of your like emotional trauma on us, because we're just trying to help you feel nicer. So if there can be some understanding that also you need to respect my boundaries, and certain things may trigger me, are just not conversations that were being had, which just goes to show, like, even just, the value of a nail appointment and that, and that service was really undervalued, and the health and I think the boundaries of a nail technician probably haven't been respected for far too long. And so now that people can talk about it and clients can understand, and other nail technicians can understand, various people's points of view, is really important. I think that's that's probably one of the most positive shifts in the industry, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think boundaries is definitely important. It's understanding respect between the nail tech and the client. And also too, I like how you said about nail prep, because I think nail prep is very important. And, that's something that I've, had to work on. And when I took that course with Vanity Projects, they showed me like, this is how you prep the nails. I'm like, oh, okay, this is how you prep the nails. So that way the nails last longer and you make sure that the client feels comfortable, especially, to give confidence to them that the nail service, whether it's acrylic or gel or with like just gel polish, it'll last long. So
sure.
that's the thing with that. But also too, like, how you said with social media, it can drain you, if you let it, because
Yes,
sometimes it's easier to compare yourself to other people and say, oh, look at their artwork and look at mine, and theirs looks better than mine. And, and sometimes what that does, it takes away from that joy, that enjoyment of what you do, especially in your own style. So I think it's something that we have to work on, especially, if we're into social media, if we look at social media, just try not to compare yourself to others, because everyone has their own lane.
100%. And that's like a really key one. Like, as somebody who is constantly comparing myself, like, it's crazy, because when you look at it on the surface, like, you are who you are, and you bring what you bring to the table. Like, nobody can take that away from you, nobody can change that, and that in itself is incredibly valuable. But it's so easy to look at someone else and be like, wow, my work sucks. Like, it's nowhere near as good as that. Or, like, why am I not doing that? Or this person's using this product, I'm not using that product. And like, just constantly looking for ways to, take away from what you're providing and what you're doing. It's very easy to do that on social media. So I completely agree. I think it's so important that people talk about that aspect of it as well, for people to be able to just look at everybody's work and enjoy it and celebrate each other's craft without feeling like it's an opportunity to put yourself down. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. So it's kind of just looking at, like how you said, is take it as inspiration with people's work. And, and sometimes, you expect to be like on trend with everything. And I think that you don't have to be on trend with everything. Just stick to what you do.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
So that's something that's very, very important. Now, I want to ask this question, like, how would you define success in your perspective?
Enjoying what you do. Like, I think on paper, it's always been, money, like money or power or, a huge amount of exposure or having a certain kind of platform. But I think as I'm growing, I think even just looking at my presence online, last year I was pulling my hair out and being like, I don't have enough followers, I'm not getting enough orders, should I be seeing more clients, all this other stuff. And
Mhm.
I think there was a time where I took like a month off Instagram because it was getting to be too stressful. But I just sat in it. I just sat in my craft and I would just create day after day. And I just never felt tired. And I realized that I was just enjoying what I was doing. And I realized how much of a luxury that was. But it also felt like the first time I could be like, wow, I'm doing really well. Like, prior to that, I'd always worked on the technical side. Like I said, my background is in marketing. And I
Mhm.
don't hate what I do, but it doesn't bring me as much joy as it used to when I was a lot younger in my career. Been doing it for around 9 years now. But I don't think I've ever felt successful as a marketer because things move so quickly and you're always having to change and adapt. You don't have enough time to really sit and like soak up what you're doing or think
Right.
about it as much as you'd like to. And when I remember I was sat and I was doing a set and I was like, wow, like this is incredible. Like what a blessing it is to have found this passion and to be able to share it with people and often have really good experiences of that. Like that, I think to me felt like success. And I think the worry of, social growth and orders and things like that, they are important. And obviously success looks different to different people. But for me personally, it's realizing that you get to do what you love because it is a huge privilege. Not everybody gets that, but
Mhm.
that is what success feels like to me.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I can agree with that because I had that experience too. Like, when I was selling, my press-on nails on my Etsy shop, I'm like, oh, I'm not making a sale. I don't know what's going on, but of course, sometimes you have to take a break off of like social media and, just don't think about those things for a little bit and just focus on what you do and focus on
Mm,
getting into the craft as much. So I can relate to that. And
mm.
that's the thing. So it's just having that enjoyment of what you do. And also too, sometimes knowing when to take a step back
Yeah, for
and just
sure,
and
for
just
sure.
relax and chill. And the thing is too, it's always, you learn something new every day. So it's also having that willingness and having that joy of learning something new. So that's the thing with social media and
Yeah.
the internet. Like despite
Mm.
it can have its negatives, but it has the positives, which you can learn some every day. Google's like the biggest search engine you could look at. You could type in anything.
No, it's so true. Like we have such a wealth of information that's available to us now. Like I think even when I'm watching tutorials online or if I'm watching some of my favorite nail YouTubers, I constantly think, wow, like a good maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, there just wasn't this amount of information. There really wasn't. Like to
Mhm.
think that I had learned so much before I even went to train. Like I fully believe that I was only able to do as well as I did or to feel as comfortable as I did or confident, maybe that's the right word, to feel as confident as I did
Mhm.
in pursuing that and pushing forward with it is because of the amount that I'd learned. And I mean, I owe a lot to, the people that are just willingly giving this information away, but that's also again like living in the age of information has its negatives and some real negatives, but so many positives. I mean, the school of YouTube alone, like you can learn so
Right.
much, right? And then if you go to
Mhm.
your explore page, the amount of times I've just clicked on a post and I'm like, huh, that's a new way to do that. I'd never considered that. So yeah, like I think there are so many great sides to it. I think it's great that we do have such a wealth of information at our fingertips at all times.
Mhm. And also too is, sometimes part of success is also maintain that work ethic, but part of it is giving yourself credit and giving yourself some grace and
Mm-hmm,
like look back at how far you've come, looking back at how
mm-hmm,
much you've achieved. And, like how we said there again earlier about, comparing yourself to others, and to understand that everybody's path is different, is not going to be the same. Everybody has their own race. So you have to focus on your own lane and your own race and your own pace. So that's another thing
no,
too.
I couldn't agree more. I think one of the, and this one is, I guess, I don't really know why it's a gray area. I think that's what I've realized when I've spoken to other creators. But like one thing that I really struggled with is you get a lot of people sharing like their stats and stuff on social media, which is great because people should be allowed to celebrate their achievements. But sometimes
Mhm.
it can make people feel like, oh, like, why am I not getting those things? And I think when I realized I was really struggling with my lack of growth on my Instagram page, I noticed how much I was obsessing over other people's likes and comments and things like that. So I just turned them off. I just turned them off. And just the change that that made. And I think the reason why I hadn't done it is because initially I felt like, oh, maybe I'm weak, like, why can't I see how many likes someone got? But then when I realized that it was really just about sharing and celebrating each other's work, and like you said, showing yourself grace and being able to celebrate what you're doing, I realized that everyone's different. Other people don't have to turn people's likes off. But for me personally, like that helps me massively because I was like, now I just get to come on here. I get to be like, oh, this looks amazing, or this looks amazing without getting distracted by all these things that Instagram has to an extent put on there for a purpose. Some
Mhm.
of these negative purposes absolutely do feed their success. And so,
Mhm.
having these tools at hand to be able to sort of make the experience easier for yourself, I think it's really important to utilize that if you are in that position.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Absolutely. Now, last but not least, where can everybody find you on social media and how can people support your work?
People can find me on Instagram at I am underscore pressed PRESSD. I also just started a YouTube channel called Nail Journal. And it's literally just spelled exactly as you'd imagine. It's just nail and then journal. Where I'm just trying different nail art styles out, trying out new techniques, new products, etc. Those are the only two platforms that I'm on, really. Oh, I'm on Pinterest as well, but it's kind of half a personal, half a nail account, but it's just Mutsa. I'm just called Mutsa on Pinterest. So you can find me on those three.
All right. Well, Mutsa, thank you so much for jumping onto the show. Your work is great. And it's
Thank
a pleasure to
you.
get to know you and to know your story. It's really, really incredible, and I'm glad that we can like connect in some way. And I just noticed that we're both wearing green to a degree. So
Yes, we are. You're so right.
so it's really great to get to know your story. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. I'm very honored because you've had so many of my faves interviewed on here. So for you to ask me to take the time to look at my work and to consider me to have me on your show, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Asia.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also, follow me on my social media platforms and visit my website, ASIATHABIRD.com, and be on the lookout for more interviews to come very soon. Take care and stay beautiful.